The archaeologists looked at the sealed tomb. A crude knot had been tied thousands of years ago and had remained undisturbed. That alone was a miracle. A stale and pungent air rushed out as they opened the tomb. The dust made his throat itch. Timidly, he stepped forward, the first person in millennia to enter this room. All around was fine gold, furniture, and decorations, a room fit for a pharaoh. And in the middle was a beautiful sarcophagus. Greedily, he eyed the treasure, the legacy which he had now had in his hands. With reckless abandonment, he pushed open the sarcophagus. Happy Halloween, adventurers, and welcome to Mythical Phylogeny. I'm your guide, Jason. As has become the tradition, to celebrate the fiendish holiday, let's look at another classic monster, the mummy. While most people think of Egypt when they think mummy, the truth is variations are found across the world. Just about every culture has some form of mummification. Not all were completely intentional. These are called spontaneous variants. The process of mummification goes back to the tale of Osiris, the Egyptian god of death and the underworld. Yet it was the god Anubis who oversaw the process of mummification. This creates an anthropogenic mummy. It is a rather brutal process. Good thing you are dead when it happens, else it would be pure torture. The body would be washed and purified using wine, water of the Nile, and oils. The brain is removed via the nose. Using a hooked rod, they would scramble the brain and cause it to drip out slowly. And then the brain was discarded. Yeah, that surprised me. Apparently, they didn't consider the brain critical to the soul. The cavity was then rinsed with an antiseptic of sorts to kill bacteria and slow decomposition. Through a cut on the side, the liver, lungs, intestine, and stomach were all removed. Each was then placed in a canopic jar, one for each of Horus's sons. As for the heart, which was the seat of emotion and reasoning, was usually left inside the body. It was then washed with wine and spices. Then for 40 to 70 days, it was exposed to salt to dehydrate it, before being stuffed with linens, sand, and sawdust to retain its shape. Only then was it wrapped in linens. Amulets would be placed between the layers, before finally being sealed in a sarcophagus, a wood one and then a stone one if you were amongst the rich. Originally, only the nobles and wealthy could be mummified, but that did change over time. And there were cheaper methods used too, some involving cedar oils and others even less. In total, it is believed that the ancient Egyptians created over 70 million mummies over 3,000 years. But you had probably heard of a curse being laid upon the tomb of the pharaohs. Well, that comes with Tutankhamun's tomb, when opened by Howard Carter and his team. When they entered the tomb on November 29, 1922, they claimed to hear a human voice cry out, but couldn't understand it. In time, those who had entered the tomb began to die. George Herbert was the first, on April 5, 1923, from an infected mosquito bite. Then George J. Gould passed on May 16, 1923. Archibald Douglas Reed would follow on January 15, 1924. A.C. Mace would follow in April 1928 from pneumonia. Mervyn Hubert perished from malarial pneumonia on May 26, 1929. Richard Bethel was murdered by smothering on November 15, 1929. There was also Bruce Ingram, who received a paperweight including a mummy's hand with a scabbard bracelet saying, "Cursed be he who moves my body, to him shall come fire, water, and pestilence." Then his house burned down, and was flooded when rebuilt. Oh, and Carter himself would perish March 2, 1939. He would write about seeing a jackal like Anubis recently in his journal, just before passing, after not seeing one his whole life. The final survivor of the opening of the tomb was Evelyn Herbert, who passed in 1980. The cause of death is believed to be tied to a fungal infection by modern scientists. Of course, why would men of science believe in cursed tombs? Complete and utter hogwash, they would say. Now, in fantasy, the mummy is maintained by the curse and ancient magics, often written in the Book of the Dead, which was the mythical book which held the methods of embalming and funeral rites inside. They are seen as powerful undead, wielding various forms of magic, command of the elements, power over animals such as serpents and scarabs, influence over the living and the undead. Those are bad enough before adding in immortality and enhanced physical traits. Throw in forms of teleportation and flight, and you have a pretty stacked toolkit. Though, it has been fairly rare to find an untouched tomb where the mummy remains. With all the treasure, gold, money, and jewelry inside, it was a prime target for grave robbers. I mean, it is the same as a king's ransom. One tomb, and you'd be living well for the rest of your life. Often, the mummy would just be thrown out into the desert to be preyed on, or tossed into fire and burned. Though other uses arose at later times. Now, what should you do if you are unfortunate enough to enrage a mummy and become its target? Well, they aren't always the most aggressive in their attacks, often being more akin to a hunting, creeping up on you while you sleep. Often the first sign of the mummy is their first kill. How it will look depends on the curse or magic sustaining them. So, best get your investigative abilities figured out. Look for traces of magic or mysterious occurrences. This may take years. It will stalk and plan each attack. Once you figure out that there is a mummy, the real work begins. It is powered by ancient magics, so look to ancient sources of protection. Egyptians viewed cats as sacred. In the Battle of Pelusium, 525 BC, the Persian army wielded cats against the Egyptians, who were scared to harm them. This might serve as a deterrent against the mummy. You may also find protective spells in the Book of the Dead. As for its offensive powers, you'll need to match spells with spells and swords. It won't be easy. Since this is a form of undead, you should look to clerics and paladins who have powerful magic against them. The summons will also be difficult to handle. It is the influences over others which you need to watch for. This won't be easy, and you'll need everything you can. Your first priority is survival and avoiding the mummy. Don't face it until you can win. Most likely, you'll be looking for the canopic jars, the amulet it is tied to, or the source of the curse. Destroying them is often said to weaken, if not slay it outright. Hopefully, you know where they are. Now, mummies were once human and may retain some of their intelligence. So, you could speak. Can you negotiate? Probably not. But you can learn what you're dealing with. Hopefully, soon enough to save your life. The best option is if you can use powerful dispelling magic to remove the curse. Else, it will get difficult. Mummies are fueled by ancient and often forgotten magics. That is why I'm going with a 5 of 10 for difficulty. Between its magic, stealth, and intelligence, you will have your work cut out for you. Should you gamble such a curse by plunging into a pharaoh's tomb? Well, they were filled with treasures. Gold, jewels, toys, and more. One even had a freaking boat in it. Seriously, who knows what you can find in them? The only thing that I can guarantee is that it will be a lot. So, do you believe this mumbo jumbo about curses and mummies? Well, you're an adventurer, right? And what sort of adventurer shies away from treasure? This is why I feel adventurers doing crypt runs would always bring a curse breaker with them. Someone who is ready for whatever happens. Oh, and bring an archaeologist too. That would help. Well, this sort of dungeon crawl could be lucrative and very dangerous. So, normal for adventurers. Yet, there is something that you can gain from slaying them. Mumia. It is a form of powdered human remains used in medicine coming from Arabic and Asian cultures. They would also scrape out the dried embalming materials, which had formed into a black resin. And this dated back to the 12th century, and led to lots of grave robbing by the locals due to knowing how much they could make off some dead guy's corpse. The material was used in medicine and even in paints. Funny enough, part of what brought about this trade was a mistranslation. The archaeologist coughed. He had been ill since that tomb. Though, that wasn't why his hands were shaking. No. He had received a letter from his friend's estate. He had passed. Beside it were 2 more letters with the same announcement. He couldn't escape the feeling that something was after him. It was like he was being watched. He could practically feel the hands wrapped around his throat. The cold chill permeated the air, even now. He coughed once more as he looked back at the window. His face whitened when he saw an eyeless face staring back at him. Screaming, he ran through the house. The idea of a mummy rising up may stem from the legend of Osiris, but it has taken on an undead life of its own in our modern mythology. Truly, they embody our fear of death, and what people are willing to gamble for wealth. Thank you for watching, adventurers. Please return next time for the Summoner. Until then, I'll see you on the roads.